Three, two, one. Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Macks. I'm Maggie Davis, also joined today by, of course, Zack and Jack Pilgrim. We're talking all of your favorite sports topics, which is basically any sports topic today because we finally have some action after the last couple of months of nothing, thanks to this little thing called the coronavirus. So we're going to start with baseball today, America's pastime. All of us are super huge baseball fans, real experts of the sport. But first, how are you all doing today?
Zachary?
I'm doing fantastic, actually. As you can see today, folks, I have a new background. We're going to continue this trend. It's still my same boy here.
What would JR do?
Scratch him on his face or something.
Obviously be roommates with Zach Gagan.
Yeah,
That's
I
what,
gave him a
that's what JR
kiss
would do.
earlier when it was just me and Jack, but I'm not going to do that. I'll kiss him on the forehead.
There you
Aw,
go.
that's
That was
really
cute.
tender.
He
That
doesn't
was cute.
do anything. But look at that! Look at that face, though. That's a face only a mother could love.
And
Well,
How are you?
I am just fantastic. Ready? I missed you guys. It's been
It
a
has
long
been.
hiatus. There was some family stuff that popped up last week, so we couldn't do this last week. But I'm very excited to be back and give some hot or not so hot sports takes because
when was
they
the last
should get
time we were
consensus.
together in person?
Person?
Yeah.
Ooh, like
We went to a
5
game
months.
together. We did a
Yeah.
game
Probably the
together.
last, what?
We did a game at Rupp together, like in January.
yeah, it's been
Well,
a
I
minute.
saw Jack probably the last game at Rupp, that UKUT game, right? Was it? I think that was it.
I probably wasn't at that.
Oh, that was a fun one. That was the Ashton Hagens game, wasn't it? Yeah,
It
that was
sure
fun.
That was my
I like
last
that one a lot.
game. It was my senior night. We took some cute pictures on the court. You were a great photographer.
Yeah,
That was a sad
the
night.
game sucked.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, that was
What
on.
a way, what
It
a
was
way
on
to
SEC Network
end our
yesterday.
in-person friendship.
Yeah. Mhm.
Oh, that's funny. Okay, let's talk baseball. I have my coffee today. We've talked about this forever, doing some sort of drinking episode. I just assumed it would be like beer or White Claws, but I'm going coffee today because this is, we'll say it's the morning. It's like 11:30, but we'll say it's the morning. So I needed this before I can talk about baseball because this really bothers me how they're doing the baseball season in terms of the total lack of like coronavirus, even attempt at any sort of bubble. What about you all?
Yeah,
No fairness.
it's really frustrating it seems like they just approached this whole thing and said, let's just get a season scheduled and then just see how it goes. And I think that is the exact opposite of how you're supposed to handle this. Although I will give the other teams credit. I think we need to know more about what the Marlins did exactly because they had, I think, what they're up to like 17 players / staff members who have tested positive, but they did another test of the rest of the MLB of the 29 other teams in the league. 0 have tested positive out of like 6,000 tests. So it seems like everybody else has gotten the memo and they realize, hey, we got to, try to be safe, wear a mask. I mean, you watch most games and they're wearing masks on first base and got, in the opportunities that they'd be able to talk to other people or be in close proximity, they're wearing masks. So it seems like most of the league is getting it, and that makes sense. But something like this was bound to happen, and the MLB had to. There's no reason that they didn't have a contingency in place for this whenever this inevitably did happen. So yeah, it's very frustrating. But I'm hoping that the Marlins are the outlier, not the norm moving forward.
I think what's really frustrating is how the NBA, back in March, one positive test shut the whole league down. Now things are 100 times worse than they were. Marlins just had 18 tests, and they're still playing. They canceled the games through Sunday or whatever. So now they're not even a week into the season. They're already postponing games and everything. And the MLB is going to keep touting out the number that I think it was over 32,000 tests through opening day. They had 0.3% come back positive, which is a great number. But guess what? They weren't traveling state to state until the day after opening day. So now that, players are starting to go out and do things, they're not in a bubble. Apparently, I saw a report from like some USA Today guy, I think it was Bob Nightingale was his name, said that it was like one player who went out. One player went out, came back, brought it, gave it to the whole team. So It's just, there's got to be some common sense there. Like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Don't go, like,
Right.
Well,
And
we'll talk about Lou Williams in a second, but it's kind of the same type of concept.
Right. Well, and you bring up the point that like one test in the NBA, one positive test, shut the whole league down. That sort of led to so many of these college conference tournaments getting shut down, March Madness getting canceled. And so at first I was like, I wonder if this would have been different if it was the Yankees or the Dodgers. And I was like, probably. But then I was like, Rudy Gobert is not LeBron James.
Yeah.
And so you can't think about stuff like that. You have to know that everyone in the league matters. They all have families. No one wants coronavirus. No one wants to help continue spreading this disease. And so no matter which team it is, I think it's important to realize how many tests they've already had and to track it over the next couple of weeks and see how much it spreads from here. Because if they're able to contain it, of course, it's terrible those 17 or 18 people have it right now, but if they're able to catch it in time, get them quarantined, get it contained, it doesn't go to the teams they played against or the teams using their same locker rooms, then I think you can be like, okay, well, that was sort of on that one team. Let's see if we can prevent that from happening again now that we know that if it does happen, this is how we're able to contain it. But what can't happen is it continues to increase over the next couple of days.
One thing I did like is, I mean, this really wouldn't be fair on the grand scheme of things for the rest of the MLB, but the TBT that we just watched, if there was one positive test, they said, see ya, you're gone, like you're out of contention. And I think I don't think they'd be allowed to do that, but to at least have some sort of not punishment, but something to keep you, to keep you honest and say, okay, well, instead of going out to the strip club like Lou Williams or going to, whatever this Marlins player did, if you know that, okay, if there's an outbreak within the team, maybe not just one positive, but if there's an outbreak like what we just saw with this, you're done. Like you have to hold everybody accountable and make sure that there's no way that this thing spreads. One idea that I did think, everybody's like, oh, well, they should have just turned this into a bubble. Why didn't they turn the MLB into a bubble? And then the counter to that was, how would you make a bubble out of all these MLB teams? And I did see one, I think it was on Reddit. I'm not sure where I read it, but they said Reddit on Reddit.
Hey.
Very good, very good. And they said we should have had, because there's 2 stadiums in New York, Chicago, and LA, there should have been 3 regionalized bubbles to create 6 arenas to split off between the various conferences and divisions. And at that point, we could have created at least a makeshift bubble where it's not technically a literal bubble like the NBA is having, but it would have at least been some sort of, you're keeping guys, intact, isolated from other people to minimize traveling. That would have been an ideal situation. And I wonder if we start seeing, more of these cases pop up, and the Marlins season is paused right now. If we start seeing all these other teams and their seasons pause, I wonder if the MLB would take a step back and go, okay, round 1 sucked. Round 2, let's figure out how to do this again. And that becomes their backup plan. Like, all right, well, we gotta do it. We gotta have a season. Let's just try to create a makeshift bubble last second, see if we can make this work. I wonder if that would be the case, but that something like that forward thinking should have been the initial thought process, not, oh shit, this is, after several outbreaks, we have to do this to make sure that this doesn't spread throughout the rest of the league.
Right. And we brought it up a couple times. I think we have to just go ahead and dive into this Lou Williams story because everyone's talking about it. It's not hilarious because he's putting a lot of people at risk, but to some extent, it's hilarious. What did you all think about that?
Go for it, Zach.
Mr. NBA bubble. Let's dive into the bubble talk.
Well, I thought it was. I also, so Lou Williams has a weird non-connection to Kentucky, because he's friends with Jack Harlow and his nickname is Lou Willville.
Yeah,
but
weird.
He also
right?
is not from Louisville at all or anything like that. So I just thought it was all funny how Jack Harlow's last few years he spent most of his time in Atlanta. I guess that's how he's met Lou Will. And I think the funniest part of all this is that Jack Harlow was the one that got him in trouble essentially.
Yeah.
I agree, and he's not getting enough heat for that. We're all diving in on Lou Williams being there, whatever, and he deserves some criticism for that, obviously. But also, does Jack Harlow have to put everything on Instagram? That's why he got caught.
And then his backup story.
Yes, and then the NBA mask that they got in the bubble the personalized NBA mask. He's like, that's an old picture. No,
He said, "Oh, I really missed my friend. I just wanted to tell him how much I missed him publicly." It's like you're lying through your teeth. You went out, you saw an NBA player, you were like, "Oh, this is my buddy. Let's take a picture," like all normal people do. They posted said picture, and he went, "Oh, whoops! I probably shouldn't have put that out there," and then try to come up with some lame excuse. Own
but
it.
it was
At
up
this
for
point, just own it.
It was up for like at least 20 minutes. It wasn't like a 30-second thing where he was like, "Oh, shouldn't have done that." Like, it was up there for a while.
And to be fair to Lou Will, he did leave for proper reasons. I think it was his uncle.
I saw a grand.
Yeah, some family member did pass away, and like he went to that and like had good reason. And also, did you see the picture of the wings?
Baller, fire.
They did look
pretty
like
good.
it.
Yeah. Obviously, don't do that. Like that's why we have the bubble. That's what the bubble is for. But it's also concerning because you've got other players that are going around doing the exact same thing, and they're not breaking the rules. So one guy's gonna ruin it for everyone.
Yeah, well, and then he tried to say like, "Oh, well, I was just picking up food." Okay.
At a strip
club? Food out to your car.
Yeah. Takeout's a thing.
That's what takeout is. That's what we're all supposed to be doing right now.
Do they have takeout strippers though?
Yeah, that's the problem.
Did you guys see there was a USA Today article where
are we about to start talking about strippers?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, there was an article that they posted, and there is a drive-through strip club somewhere. I don't know where it is, but you sit in your car.
Where.
And the headline was drive-through strip club utilizes 2-song maximum or something like that. Like you're only allowed to stay for 2 songs. I swear to God, I saw it and I was like, man, that's kind of innovative, to be totally honest. I mean, like they're trying to make some money and they're like, how can we make the most of this really crappy situation that we're in right now in the midst of a pandemic? Let's create a drive-through strip club. I mean, I personally would not partake, but
yeah.
But
Yeah, Jack, one that brought it up, knows everything about it. He's not going to go.
No, I of course not. I would never do
married.
That. Yeah. I would never do such a thing. I just think it's innovative. That's all.
Elsewhere in the bubble, while we're still diving into this bubble talk situation, can we talk about the fact that Nerlens Noel, among other players, has literally just forgotten to get tested? I mean, I feel like that is the biggest part about being in the bubble. That, like, well, how are you not just waking up every day and being like, first thing I gotta go do, get my nose swabbed. Let's do this, make sure it's still negative so I can play today. How do you just go a full 24 hours and forget to do that? Zach, what did you think of that story?
This one blew my mind. Like it actually blows my mind. And I did the story for this on KSR yesterday. And even in the post, I was like, does he not have a computer, a phone, a tablet, a watch, an alarm clock? I mean, this is like this. We can't see it because JR's in the way. This is an alarm. You can set it every single morning to tell you. It tells you to wake up at a certain time to go do things. It's an amazing feature.
Really new technology too.
There's
alarms.
An app for reminders. You could set that every day. COVID test. Also, you have staff there with you. You've got assistant coaches. You have teammates. How is there not a group text like, everyone good today?
Hey, you got your test today? Hey, how we doing?
Not just
all negatives? Cool.
I think it falls on the coaching staff a little bit too, because you have to
I agree with that.
And the league in general needs to make sure it should be more the league's control. Like the players, obviously, mistakes happen, but they can't happen right now. They can't.
I'm a little surprised there's not like scheduled times for them to go every day. Like Nerlens, you go at 11 a.m. every day. Like, I mean, once you start, I guess that'll be a little harder, but I'm just surprised it's not more scheduled. And it's not like he could ever be that far away. Like, if you can't find him, guess what? He's probably in the hotel. Go find him. Go text him.
Almost like he has a room with his name attached to it. You can just go to his room.
I don't get it. Yeah. I don't understand this story, but it, like Zach said, it blows my mind.
Yeah. Didn't get it.
Any other big bubble stories we want to talk about? I hope we get to see AD play.
Bam is
Yes, that was good news.
Yeah, he did have COVID. He did. It was confirmed.
But he played yesterday. He made his debut.
He played. He's back. He's fine. Bledsoe's going to play as well whenever their season starts. So they're all good to go.
I got to be honest. Like, I'm proud of how they have collectively, I mean, yes, there have been a couple isolated incidents with guys, but it seems like the group mindset right now is there. Like, they're like, we all know that this sucks. We know we're all away from our families. This is not an ideal situation for anybody, but we all want to have somebody crowned champion this year. We want an NBA champion this year. At this point, I mean, yeah, we want it to be us, but we just want to have this season be for something. We already played starting back in last October all the way through now. Why not just finish this last little bit? Let's just put our heads together. Let's finish the season. Let's do it. I am really proud of all of them and how they have kind of stuck with it and really made sure that this is working. Because, I mean, Zach, you were one of the biggest pessimists going into it all this. And even you, seeing your joy, you know, we text and we DM all the time of being able to just sit down and be like, oh, this game's on tonight. Oh, man, Bam looked good tonight. Oh, you know, Bowl's the next KD. You know, that we get to have those stupid takes now because there's basketball on our televisions. And for that, I thank them.
Yeah.
And well, I think go ahead.
The contrast between the NBA and the MLB is just, it's so telling, and the NFL even. It's so telling in so many different ways. Because the Nerlens thing is a great example. Nerlens missed one test, and they quarantined him for 24 hours. The Marlins had 18 positive tests, and they played a game. They played a game. So it's just, I'm like Jack said, I was very pessimistic. And even still, you know, I'm not going to keep my hopes up that things continue to go this way, even though they've gone really well and all the players are buying into it. But they are doing such a much better job than the MLB and actually taking this seriously that it does give me a little bit of hope. And I mean, the season starts tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
So
real life basketball is tomorrow.
Yeah.
So exciting. And I think the big difference is the NBA was willing to not only give them that amount of time and effort to really think through this and figure out what was going to be best, but they put their money behind it. I saw a figure somewhere, I think it was $180 million just for the bubble. That is crazy, but also necessary. I mean, if you're going to put this number of people in a bubble, contain them, test them, if you really want this to work, that's what a league is going to have to put into it. And that's what we're clearly not seeing with the MLB, probably not going to see with the NFL. Colleges won't have that even as an option to put that much money behind something. So I think the NBA deserves a lot of credit for just being able to be like, hey, we lost a lot of revenue this season too, but we're still going to put this $180 million in to try to finish out this season. And Jack, I thought you brought up a good point when you mentioned that the players want to finish this season. I think, at least for me, I keep thinking of this as like a totally new thing. And I'm like, oh, it's, you know, sports are back. Like in my head, it's almost like a new season. Obviously, there are still the favorites and there are teams that you think are sort of headed in the right direction in terms of trying to actually win the championship. But for the players, it has to be so frustrating. And I think back to the UK players who just worked all season for no reward at the end.
Right.
To not even play in their conference tournament, to not get a chance. At UK, obviously, you know, not get a chance to play for a title, but for smaller schools to not even know if they would have made it into the tournament. That uncertainty has to really weigh on a player's mind. And so I'm glad that the NBA isn't going to have that. Hopefully, fingers crossed, that things continue on in this sort of direction. And I brought up UK there, so I want to go ahead and transition to a little bit of UK basketball talk. I know you all want to talk about EJ Montgomery. Jack, I will throw it down to you, sir.
So, Monday, the NBA releases 105 names that they are going to that's not the finalized list. They're going to cut it down to like 65 or to 70 names, but they release an initial set of 105 people that are in consideration for the NBA Combine. They don't know when the Combine is happening. They don't know if the Combine is happening, but they said in case, again, the NBA, I mean, yeah, they probably should have had a better plan, but this was at least the initial steps to show that the NBA is thinking ahead that, hey, if there is the possibility for us to have a combine in the near future, we have to have people to participate in said combine. We can't invite them last second. We need to let them know that they are in this specified list. So 105 names out there, 5 former Kentucky, Khalil Whitney was also in the list. I don't know if you want to classify him as a Kentucky player or not, but Ashton Hagans, Nick Richards, Tyrese Maxey, Emmanuel Quickley, and Khalil Whitney all made the list. Good on them. Congratulations. The one guy that didn't of that group of 6, EJ Montgomery. EJ, buddy, I'm rooting for you. I really, really want you to be the next Wenyen Gabriel and prove everybody wrong and carve your name out of the league.
Not
But
exactly the next Wenyen
on
Gabriel.
court, the next Wenyen Gabriel. Not off court, definitely not. But to this day, talking to people behind the scenes, Kentucky thought that EJ initially, based on how the season was going, they thought, done deal, he's coming back. He wants to come back. He saw what Nick Richards did this last season. He feels that he could be the next Nick Richards if he comes back and puts in the work this offseason. He knows things didn't go as he wanted this year, but he does see that light. And then the season ended. And then he went back home and talked to his inner circle and the people that want to, friends of cousins and distance. Oh, remember you were my 5th grade best friend. Oh, hey, you should go get that bag in the NBA and throw me $1. Like, when those type of people start getting in your life again, that, it starts kind of clouding your judgment a little bit, and you make decisions such as entering the NBA draft when you have 0.0% chance of being drafted. And that's where we are with EJ Montgomery. NBA scouts right now they're not laughing at him, but they're like, dude, you made the biggest mistake of your life by not going pro or by not returning to school for one more year. And I feel really bad for EJ because I know he's not going to get drafted. He's going to spend some time in the G League, and he's going to have to go overseas and carve out his own. And maybe that's what he wants to do. If that's what he wants to do, he wants to go explore, go travel the country, travel the world. By all means, if that's what he wants to do, that's fine. But if he did this for his NBA dreams, this was the worst way to go about it. And I think that reality is starting to set in now when his name wasn't included in 105. That means if there were 4 rounds of the NBA draft, we wouldn't even know if he would make that. Like 2 full drafts back to back, we wouldn't know if he'd be on at the tail end of that 4th round. That's where his stock is.
When that list came out, all I could think about, honestly, was how he must be feeling. And I know that's sappy or whatever, but if we saw that list, he saw it, his family saw it. He had to sit there and read through 105 names and not see his own. And he's a UK guy. Like, I do feel sorry for him. I want the best for him. I totally agree with what you said about that. But I know that Zack feels a little differently than Jack does. So I'll toss it over to you now. What do you think about all of this?
Well, Jack he touched on 2 points that I was going to talk about a little bit. The Wenyen Gabriel one, I think that's the main comparison here that I'm going to bring up, because they took similar routes, likely going to go undrafted. Wenyen has carved out his role. There is precedent for something like this to go well. And I was a person that, and I'll flex another one of my Zackisms from 5 years ago. I said that Wenyen Gabriel would carve out a role in the NBA. He didn't need college. He really didn't. He was just a player that had the skills to do it. EJ is too. He's 6'9". He's got, he has the ability to handle the ball. Like, a lot of what we're doing with EJ right now is assuming. We are assuming so much about this kid that we literally know nothing about. Jack even made the point, maybe he wants to go overseas, because that's what he's like. The reality is, if EJ Montgomery goes overseas, he's still going to make more money than I ever will.
True.
So he can go live in Italy and wherever he wants and make all that money there, come back, maybe do something else. I mean, I feel like there's a lot of assuming that, EJ is, who knows if EJ's even upset, or maybe EJ saw the list and he's like, you know what, screw that. I'm going to prove to them that I'm all better. And maybe he comes out and he carves out a role in the G League, and then all of a sudden in 2 or 3 years, he's in the NBA. So the inner circle thing, yeah, that's probably he probably had people in his ear telling him, should he have come back to UK? Like, he did. If you look at that, just the 105 draft thing or combine thing, yeah, he probably should have come back. But we can't, assume any of that for real, because there's a lot of things that he could be doing right now that's nothing of what we're saying. And he could be perfectly content with his decision. Maybe he just didn't want to come back to UK. Maybe he wasn't a fan of UK. Obviously, the same thing kind of happened with Wenyen. If I had to guess, the reason Wenyen left is because he didn't like UK. That's why he went to the draft. Maybe EJ Montgomery.
Or they just don't like the college setup in general. I mean, I don't think we necessarily have to take it as a personalized thing against UK. I mean, maybe we can sort of see that about Wenyen now. I don't think that we've really seen that from EJ at this point, so I don't think that's really fair to say.
I don't think we did.
Right, but there are guys who don't want to have to spend their days going to class and pretending to care about that kind of stuff when their ultimate goal is to play professional basketball.
Yeah.
They don't like having to limit
fair.
how much they're allowed to practice. They don't like having to limit how much they're allowed to see their coach, and that's fine. I get that. If your ultimate goal is to play professional basketball, it's stupid for you to go take these classes for an extra year if you know that eventually that's not what you're going to be ultimately doing. Obviously that's great as sort of a backup, and we've even seen really successful players go back to school and get their degrees. I mean, John Wall is a recent example, but that's not everyone's goal, and I think you're right about that, Zach.
And EJ still has the lifetime scholarship, correct?
Always, yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, I mean,
go.
I don't.
If he wants to go back and come back to college, if he tries the overseas thing, doesn't work, he can come back to UK, finish it off, get a real I think there's a lot of assuming going on with EJ right now that no one really knows.
My only thing with the Winion argument is Winion showed that he at worst could be a catch and shoot 6'9", 6'10" stretch four in the league. Like that game where that Alabama SEC tournament game where he hit 7 threes, like that was a game that NBA scouts said, okay, at worst we could put you in the corner, even though in his DM to Jaden McDaniels, that was his big thing. Like, oh, I hated being put in the corner and all that, but he has proven that at worst he could do that. What skills has EJ shown right now? What NBA talent has he shown right now at the college level that would make NBA scouts go, that right there is why he could stick? I have not personally seen. I'm in some group messages with there's some scouts, overseas scouts, some local pro talent scouts, and all of them are like, dude, I have not seen a single thing that EJ has done that makes me think, that's going to be why he sticks. Winion at least had that.
Yeah, the same thing could be said about Khalil Whitney, and it comes down to size and athleticism and potential. And if he's got a chance based on size and potential, maybe they say the same thing about EJ. We don't know. While we're talking about UK basketball, I want to also talk real quickly about some transfer news. Obviously, more transfers have been granted eligibility, but of course, not Olivier Sarr. This is another story that blows my mind. I think the theme of today is like, this story blows my mind. I don't know why this is taking so long. I don't know why everyone and their mom is getting eligible except for Olivier Sarr. I don't know what else to do. I mean, we saw that Adam Kunkel is no longer sort of in the running at all to come to UK. He signed with Xavier. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, at this point, I don't know. I mean, surely there's always someone else out there that Cal could find. But at this point, it is so late in the game that if he doesn't get eligible, it's going to be a mess. What do you think, Jack?
Yeah, I think things are definitely trending in the right direction. I think what's so funny to me is when the Johnny Juzang news came out, there were a select group of local media guys and even national guys that said, well, Johnny Juzang, he left specifically because of the pandemic and that his situation is completely different than Olivier Sarr, which he didn't leave for the pandemic. He had his bags packed in January. He was ready to leave back then anyway. So yes, that was the pitch. That was the pitch that he gave the NCAA, which is a great one. I would do the same thing if you are in the middle of a pandemic and you want to leave to go closer to home. That's a great way to win your argument. That's not how it happened, how it unfolded behind the scenes. But so when that news happened, and then there were a couple other waivers granted due to the pandemic, due to, he was injured last year. And every single time it seemed like the local and national media were saying the same thing. Well, that's not even close to Olivier Sarr's situation. That's not even close to Olivier Sarr's. And then as we're getting to like, okay, now it was like a handful of guys. Now we're to like the dozen guys. And now we're like to the 20s. Like I think 20 guys so far have received waivers right now. Several of the cases almost identical to Olivier Sarr's, if not worse than Olivier Sarr's. Like Olivier Sarr has a really, really solid argument as to why he needs to be immediately eligible this year. There's no reason that he shouldn't be eligible right now. And it's funny seeing the local and national media, how silent they're getting with every single positive waiver, bit of waiver news. We're not saying that, well, this isn't even close to Olivier Sarr's situation. I think we're reaching a growing consensus right now that Olivier Sarr needs to be declared eligible. We've seen all these other cases throughout the NCAA. The NCAA has proven that they don't care if you even have a remotely solid case behind you. They're going to grant you eligibility. At this point, it needs to be not if, but when. And if it doesn't, it's going to be, UK fans have every single right to be very frustrated and with the NCAA because there's no reason that this kid can't be playing this year. No reason.
especially because it's really looking like this will not even be an issue starting next year. So if the NCAA, I mean, I know we've talked about this so many times. I mean, Jack, you were the one who made the weed analogy a long time ago. We don't need to get back to, but that's true. But it's true. And you're right. We gave you a hard time about it because it took you a while to get there. But you were right. You were right. And I can say that because if the NCAA gets rid of this sort of rule by next year, they allow everyone, hey, one time you get to transfer wherever you want, no questions asked, but they deny anyone. Obviously, we're talking about Olivier Sarr, but just in general, any player who's transferring right now, if they deny them that immediate eligibility that they're granting just across the board in 6 months, that's a disaster and so unfair. And I would have to really sit down and think about it and write something and write some pretty strong words about it, I think, because I have so many thoughts about it right now that my brain is like firing off all these things about like, well, this doesn't make sense and this isn't fair and that's just stupid and that doesn't hold up. So I think, I mean, we're talking about Olivier Sarr, but across the board, everyone needs to be eligible right now, especially because we're in the middle of a global pandemic. I don't understand why that's not just like, hey, we're going through a lot. Don't worry about basketball right now. You're going to be able to play. Don't sweat it. And I hope Olivier Sarr isn't having to spend a lot of time dealing with this. I mean, he's back on campus with his teammates. I mean, I don't know. I haven't heard anything. Maybe Jack or Zack could speak to this, but I feel like he's practicing like normal. I feel like they're preparing if they're going to be using him. And I hope that continues because you don't want a situation where we are able to have a season. Kentucky is able to use Olivier Sarr, and he's like, oh, I waited so long. I'm like not ready to play. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, he's practicing right now. They're showing these UK is doing great at showing you a lot, but not showing you anything at all. Like they posted a 33-second video. And what did we see? Like maybe one made jump shot and one dunk. Like the whole video is just the players dribbling and like going up for a layup, but you actually don't get to see it fall. Like they're doing a great
still picture. It's just like one still picture, and you're like, oh, looks so fun.
Basketball, yay! That's exactly what we're seeing right now with UK. They're building the ultimate hype and including Olivier in the process. But there was something that came up yesterday that kind of indirectly made me think of the Olivier Sarr case that I think bodes well for him because of kind of what we were talking about, knowing that they were going to make this big move later. Why wouldn't they just do it now? Was when Oklahoma decided that, hey, we want to push up our college football season a week. Is there any chance they asked the NCAA, hey, can we get a waiver to move up our season a week? We think it's going to be healthier for the pandemic, all that. The NCAA granted that waiver to allow them to play Missouri State a week earlier on August 29th. And then 3-4 days later, the NCAA granted a blanket waiver for the rest of college football to say, hey, if you all want to do what they just did, go for it. By all means, if you all want to move your schedules up a week to kind of create more schedule flexibility, by all means do it. I kind of see that in the same light of the NCAA granting individual waivers for these kids. I see that the Oklahoma Missouri State waiver as another waiver. If they're going to grant the blanket waiver next year for these transfers, why would they not grant all of these individual waivers leading up to it? It was, again, like my weed analogy a few weeks ago. It takes a long time to get to it, but I think there is a not so indirect correlation between those two that I think the general mindset of the NCAA. Yeah. I think their general mindset is good.
That makes sense. Yeah, I agree with that. Zach?
Well, so why is it taking so long then? Why is Sarr going to be the very last one?
I think Calipari said when he talked to the media a couple weeks, I think last week or whatever it was, he said that because Kentucky is Kentucky and Olivier Sarr is Olivier Sarr, being one of arguably the number one transfer on the market, that they are going to have to take a closer look at it. And that it basically got a red flag from the NCAA, like, whoa, this isn't Iowa State kid transferring to Norfolk State. Like, this is something that we
going to Xavier.
Well, he's not even trying to get a waiver anyway. But that's a whole other frustrating situation in itself. But because it's such a high profile case, they want to make sure they do their due diligence and make sure that they get it right before they declare anyone eligible or ineligible. That was Calipari's take. But I know Kyle Tucker released something on the Athletic a couple days ago that said that Kenny Payne thinks that Sarr is going to be eligible. They're confident that they're going to have him eligible this year. So I think there's growing confidence within the program that this is going to happen. And like I said, it's a matter of when, not if, at this point.
Kenny Payne's going to go to the Knicks, though. How can we even trust him?
That's a good point. That's good. Which is another thing. I got a couple screenshots of. So that happened Sunday night at like 10 o'clock. I got a couple people sent me a screenshot of some message boards because Travis, who co-hosts my podcast with me, put out something similar that he said Kenny Payne hasn't heard anything from the Knicks yet. So as of right now, he's staying at Kentucky. And people were like, oh, here goes KSR putting out inaccurate info. And I was like, if you actually read the post, it said the Knicks have not contacted Kenny Payne yet. There have been no discussions. These are internal discussions. They haven't even hired officially Tom Thibodeau yet.
Jack. You cannot expect people to read the post. They just read the tweet. Okay?
Yeah.
You know that.
It's frustrating. It's frustrating. But yeah, yes, Kenny Payne is being discussed at the front office level with the Knicks right now. They're trying to see if it'd be a good fit with Tom Thibodeau. And then if it gets to that point, then that's when the contact would happen to see if he would want to be interviewed or if UK would even allow the interview, whatever would happen. We are still way too early in that process to even worry about Kenny Payne leaving the Knicks. But
don't worry.
It's just about knowing that he's on their radar right now.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Well, see, they're not going to hire Kenny Payne because that would be a good hire.
That's a good point.
And it's the Knicks.
And
that'd be too smart of them.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, we are about out of time, but before we go, I want to throw it back to Zack because the women's basketball team officially got to campus over the weekend. We haven't talked about them enough. If there's a college basketball season, they're going to be really good. I'm excited about this team, Zack. I know you are too. So I want to give you a couple minutes just to talk about what you've seen since they've moved in, if you've heard anything, and what you think, is a possibility for the season.
Well, as far as I know, their 3 transfers aren't going to play this year. Olivia Owens, Jasmine Massengill, and Robin Benton. And those are 3, 2 of them are starters. Benton and Massengill are definitely starters from day one. Olivia Owens, we don't really know much about her yet, but she's 6'3", something like that. So those 3 not playing will be an issue because next season is really when Kentucky's going to have – when Ryan Howard's a senior, that's when they're going to have a top 5 team from the jump, no matter who else they recruit until then. But yeah, everyone's on campus right now. Kiki McKinney was not pictured in any of this stuff, but she's here as well. So everyone's here. But as far as I can tell, this team they're going to be, a solid top 4 team in the SEC, probably similar to what we saw last year. Ryan Howard's going to be better. It's really just as far as, she can take them. A lot of it is also going to depend on how good Treasure Hunt actually is. And I think she's going to be like a mini Ryan Howard. So a lot of that matters, and just trying to figure out who's going to be playing backup guard roles, because they really only have one point guard right now in Chastity Patterson. And behind her, it's kind of rough. They don't really have someone that has proven that they can come in and control an offense. So most of it's going to be done by people like Ryan and Treasure. But going into the season, they should absolutely be a top 25, top 20 team. I don't know what the status is on the waivers. I don't know if they're really trying, but I haven't heard anything on all 3 of them. So I would just assume that it's going to be a next year thing.
Right. I agree with
exciting. Exciting. Very exciting.
Yes, I hope we get to see them. I'm glad Matthew Mitchell seems to be recovering well from his brain surgery. That was sort of some scary news we didn't talk about too much when it happened, but all that seems to be in the clear now. Also, I had a closing thought. I actually did see Zack at the grocery store in March. So I saw him most recently. Do you remember that?
No.
Yeah. At the Euclid Kroger. I can't believe you don't remember it. I met your roommate. It was a big deal.
Oh, yeah.
Obviously a really, really big deal if Zack remembers it so fondly. Like, I'm going to pretend like I know exactly what you're talking about right now.
We should do our highs and lows.
Do we want to pit and peek it?
Sure. I haven't really thought about it. I bet I could. Do you have one? Do you have one ready? A pit or a peek?
I don't, but I could think about one real quick. Does anyone have one off the top of their head?
Let's see. Basketball. That's got to be my peak.
Of
Basketball
course.
tomorrow. I'm actually about to go buy a third TV because I only have two right now in my living room setup. So I have to go and purchase another one to complete my what was the episode of The Office? They called it
Megadesk.
Mega. No,
Desk.
but then Jim made quad desk, but it was
Yeah.
three. So this
Yeah.
is quad TVs, but it's three. That's how we're doing.
Okay. Oh, nice. Very cool. What's your pit?
Everything else,
Life.
just everything
Just life.
on around it. Yeah. But the peak is
Well,
good. Love the
yeah.
peak today.
The
Keep is good.
My pit is the reason why we didn't have the show last week is because I was up in Cleveland. My wife's father had brain surgery. Things went really well, like, better than the doctors even expected. They were able to get in and take out all the bad stuff, and he's up. Things are going really well. So yeah, that was the pit. But I guess that was also kind of the peak because things did go about as well as they could have. But outside of that, definitely the sports returning. I mean, this was a big week for getting us, back in front of televisions and actually being able to digest sports that aren't marble racing and cornhole championships and that kind of stuff. We actually have real life sports going on right now, and that's a solid escape for anybody. So yeah, I'm right there with Zach. That's definitely about as high as you could get.
Right. That's good. My pit, I would say, like Zach, it's pretty much most of the day, just hanging out inside, not doing anything. Restaurants closing again. Not that I was going to very many restaurants anyway, but back down to 25% just from, a consumer standpoint. It's hard because that's going to really hurt the restaurant industry and all those people who own those businesses and work there.
For someone that works for a restaurant.
Yeah. I felt bad for our essential worker over there. But my peak would be, I got a 10 out of 10 on this background from Room Rate on Twitter. It was huge. I was so excited. It was unexpected. I was very happy about it. Like, it really pumped up the serotonin, like, that I didn't know that, like, was still possible. I was like, yes, one tweet did it. I'm smiling the rest of the day. I'm proud of my background. That was all good news for me. That was a peak.
Let's rate Jack's background right now.
Well, we can submit it to Room Rater. I don't, personally, the pictures are great, but the light.
Yeah, it's not much organization like you've got,
Right.
Mine's
perfectly curated. I'm not sure if you saw it, the tweet, but perfectly curated.
But does your room have this? Does yours room have Nick Richards? I don't think so.
Are you roommates with J.R. Smith?
I'm roommates with Nick Richards.
Not as good. I can party way harder with J.R. Smith.
I don't know. Nick's a party animal.
Right? That's a hot take. Awesome. Well, I think this is where we're going to wrap it up. Good to see you all again through this computer screen. Have a good rest of your week. We'll see you later.